they haven't played anybody like Jalen Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to be completely honest with you. They've not played anybody like JD, and especially this version of JD.
Yes.
They've not played somebody that can sit back in the pocket and hurt you when you drop 8. They've not played somebody that can do the same thing with his feet when in the option game, in the option read game, in the RPO game. They've not played somebody this confident in what he's seen. And he's coming off of 2 straight games against this odd front.
Mm-hmm.
They know what they're looking at.
Yeah.
They know what works, and they know what they feel good about.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Welcome to the Booth Review. My name is Brandon McAnderson. I am your host, and I am joined by the legend, Dave Winbush, for his second contribution to the Booth Review. He liked it so much he came back a second time. Dave, how you feeling today, brother?
Oh, I'm good, man. It is a blessing to be here, man. I appreciate you having me on again. You know, love talking Kansas football, man. So let's go.
Well, it's only right that I bring on a running back. You know, the game after Devin Neal becomes the all-time leading rusher. Devin Neal marks himself into territory that is unheard of. I think my favorite part was during the broadcast, I asked, hey, why don't you just break another record just for the heck of it? Yeah. He breaks the most 100-yard game record, gets 18 100-yard games. Those another record on top of the 2 he already had in that game. So just let's just get into it. Devin Neal Love Fest. Go now. Tell me all about your adoration for Devin Neal, not only for being a 4-star all-time recruit, choosing Kansas anyway, at a time where few times Kansas was lower than the time that Devin Neal chose to play here, comes here, plays as a 17-year-old true freshman, has kind of a little mini breakout against Coastal Carolina, then keeps progressing, becomes a face of the program at 18 years old, elevates them to previously not known heights since the 90s with a 9-win season in his junior year, and he caps it off with a record-breaking day, beating number 17 ranked Iowa State. Let's just get into the Devin Neal.
It is, and you know he's done it in such classy and grand style. I mean, I've heard nothing but great things about this kid, and I know it resonates a little more with you than me. But him being a Lawrence kid, and growing up watching the Jayhawks, man, and going to camps, and for this dream to come to fruition, like say, being thrown in there. And, I mean, you and I talk a lot, it was almost like a proud papa moment because, we're the old guys, but, we're running backs, and it's a fraternity, man, where we know what it's like, and we understand. And, that, he gets it, but it's a shared thing. I talk to you about, your success with the Orange Bowl. Like, it's a shared thing, but like the things that he's done, like say being a 17-year-old true freshman, I remember doing the same thing in different circumstances, but like he has rushes for 700 and some yards, you know what I'm saying? And then goes back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, which it will be back-to-back, triple three-peat. Yeah. This year he's got so much meat on the bone left as far as like games left and, what he can do. And I joke with family, I joke with friends. I don't know if I joke with you, he keeps climbing up on the records and everything. He is basically the face of Kansas running backs, and it's like he's trying to erase us old guys. We're holding on. We're holding on. At least remember. But I mean, and then just going to the game. He needed 7 yards to do it, and how he did it. And it kind of reminded me of when Emmitt Smith broke the record. It wasn't like a gritty, boring run. It was Some people would say, well, it should have been a touchdown, but like the way he did it, I mean that wasn't just important. And I know he probably cared more about Kansas getting off to a good start and winning the game rather than, the focus being on him breaking records, so like the way, getting off to a good start, it started fast and he got, 14 to 20?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
It was about, it was a shoestring for about being 70.
No doubt.
It was about a shoestring for being 70.
I know. So, he did it in grand fashion, man. And I'm just so happy for him. And, that's a, a testament to our offensive line and, but like it couldn't happen to a greater kid, and you see him and you're in Lawrence, and so you probably see more of him locally just because, he's there. But like, nationally and just, being a follower, you see him out, he does his thing, but it's not like he's, really trying to be seen or trying to be in the spotlight. He's pushing to the spotlight, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like, I think he always handles it, he handles it with class and just, so much professionalism for a young man. And, he's having the times of his life, I mean, golly, he breaks this, single season, then, or career, I'm sorry. Then he breaks the touchdown record. Then, like I said, then, he breaks the, consecutive 100-yard or overall 100-yard games, or is it consecutive or overall?
Overall. He was overall.
Yeah, with 18. Yeah. So, I mean, wow, man, it's a testament to younger guys out there and people that want to play, man. If you just do the right things, put your head down, take care of business, good things will happen, man. And, that's what's happened with Kansas, football, along with Devin Neal. So I'm psyched for it, man. And what a way to do it against in a game where nobody but probably people in Lawrence and me in Texas had us pick the win, or, even thought we had a chance against a good Iowa State team, man. So it's all good, man.
Yeah, it was all greatness from Devin Neal. And I think it's important to recognize, as a running back fraternity continues, between you and I and Tony Sands and, the late greats like Gale Sayers, legendary John Riggins, sometimes like the success or lack thereof, or like lack of memories to attach, kind of shapes the career. So it's unfortunate for someone like James Sims, who, as Devin broke all these records, was passing James Sims, who was a very productive player during the era.
Hard-nosed runner,
guy, just a resourceful runner, a guy that made plays, just a guy you don't hear about that much. Puka is one of my favorite Jayhawks I've ever had a chance to see play in a Jayhawk.
One of the most exciting runners,
Oh, my gosh. Some of those games he had, that 250-yard game he got against OU, and just his name, his personality.
Yeah.
He was so much fun, but there was no success attached to him. And if you go down to Khalil Herbert was awesome. Slasher, big-time speed. He had, about a 290-yard game against West Virginia at home. Went for 2 bills against Boston College. Had some good moments. Still doing his thing in the NFL. Hated to see him leave. Hated to see him transfer to Vatech, but he got what he wanted, got what he deserved, and is playing in the league today. But he's a guy that, we don't talk enough about. Devin Neal has made sure that none of that will exist because, I feel like he's representation of that generation as well. A generation of some good backs that, if you put into perspective, lots of good players, and Devin Neal's been several steps above them. And to me, it's not just about the personal production. It's about the expectations associated with it. When you think about LeBron James, part of the LeBron James lore is that he was supposed to be the guy, and he's the guy. He's the guy every day, and he's almost 40, and he's still the guy.
I know.
Devin Neal has a ton of that. This guy was supposed to rescue the program. When you think about guys like Devin Neal committing to a team that won 2 games, that didn't have a head coach until, right before the season, and he's a freshman 4-star recruit, he must be thinking, oh, no, what's going on? Doesn't waver for 1 second. Keeps his head down, continues to work, define what it means to be a Jayhawk by sticking with it, by being the face of the program, by continuing to elevate the program. I think that is what's my favorite part about it has been, is that when you do great things like Coach Leipold has and will continue to do, there are going to be pillars of your program. And in this early stages of what Leipold's been able to build, Devin Neal is at the top of that list because he represents trust, he represents belief, he represents improvement, he represents productivity, and he represents history because he tore it all down. And to do it in the way that he has, and, regardless of how you feel about this season, the team's good and they're fun to watch. And I've had a good time watching them, and they have underachieved for their expectations, but they still have some games to go. Like you said, there's still meat on the bone. There's still run defenses that Devin Neal could puncture and do some things too. So I'm still excited to continue extending that lead and continue passing down. More than anything else, and this is funny because a lot of your young boys ended up being my OGs.
Yeah.
So a lot of the guys that were walking in the door were my OGs when I was walking in the door. And what you learned about them was, I learned how to be a man. I learned about accountability. I learned about preparation. I learned about watching film. I learned about week-to-week improvement. Can you imagine what Harry Stewart and some of these young backs are looking at with him, and how much he's been able to bring to the game, what he's shown he can learn in the game, how he's improved this season. How he's improved this season. He's a guy that has always been great in the open field. I think this year he's ran with power better than he has in any other point of his career. He's done it out of the backfield with his hands. I don't think that had anything to do with him. He just didn't have a lot of opportunities. But I think he's done it well when he's got opportunities this year. I just think he's a guy that's a testament to continue to improve, never resting on your laurels, and believing in yourself in situations where people are asking you not to. Because I'm telling you, that is also part of the fraternity. Is coming to Kansas, people say, "What are you doing?" Yeah. I committed to Kansas on a night that they lost to K-State 60-0.
Wow.
In 2002.
Wow.
So I am of that ilk. I am of that belief. And to see him elevate the program and his individual status in that way, it's legendary, man. It is legendary to watch him do what he has done and continue to do for the rest of the season, Dave.
Wow. I did not know that. That's crazy. But like you say, man, there's so much more behind the scenes, and when you were saying all these things about Devin Neal, the one term that kept coming to mind, program changer, program changer. And, you can take different avenues, say, okay, that's what helps in recruiting. We have guys, 4-star guys. We have guys that are successful that come to Kansas that are ranked, 4-star and they're continuing to do great things. And you look at it, like you say, you committed on a night where Kansas got blown out. He committed to a team that only had 2 wins. And you think about relationships and you think about, what the University of Kansas provides other than like just football, within the program as far as a sense of feeling, like you're at home. Obviously y'all are right there in town, but me coming from 600 plus miles away, I felt like I was at home, and, it was late in recruitment, when I committed to go there my last visit, but I never looked back. And like you say, people say, well, why did you go? Why don't you transfer? I think it speaks to also the character of the person, not jumping ship, especially in these times when it's so easy to say, you know what, I'm going to pull out. NIL, all these extra COVID years that still, all this stuff, Devin Neal or anyone else could have easily said, you know what, I'm going to sit out, save it, go somewhere else where I can make a quick payday for 1 year or whatever, and then we'll go from there. But, and not to say that there aren't extenuating circumstances where kids do that, but we're talking about our Jayhawks and just, the things, the legacy that he's established, man. And, like you say, OGs, the guy record that he just broke, June Henley, that's who was walking out the door when I was walking in the door, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I had a chance, to just briefly chat with him, but also guys that was like in between Eric Van, who backed up, June Henley for so long. So he gave me those veteran tools and tips and things like that. And, the biggest thing about it, man, is, the mental part of it, the toughness, just being able to handle and learning, about playing with aches and you're not going to feel 100% every time, and I think Devin Neal displayed that, in the K-State game, when he had that freak little shoulder deal and, they kind of saved him, didn't want to make it worse, whatever the issue was. And that was kind of in the back of my head. And then he comes out this game and I saw, he had a brace, but sleeve, precautionary, whatever, but he ran like nothing was wrong with him. And, and I mean, just a gamer and just, showing that professionalism, taking care of your body, preparing to do what you have to do, not because you want to break the records, but because, you never say die. I mean, 2-win team at the time where, like, well, you should pack it in. Nah, as crazy as it is, there's still a chance, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And why not start kicking the door open against a good team like Iowa State and, kind of setting the tone and letting people know, hey, we're not going away. We're not going quiet into the night. So,
Yeah. I mean, if you want to set the tone in a football game, you want to go with Devin Neal. If you want to set the tone at the tailgate, look at Home Field Apparel. The designs, the vintage college designs, over 150 teams to choose from. Premium college gear, officially licensed, comfortable. They'll be at the tailgate like, man, where did you get that Dave Winbush running back shirt? They don't produce that yet, but we're working on it. Go to Home Field. They designed this apparel with nostalgia in mind and authenticity, alternate logos. Do not waste time anywhere else. Homefieldapparel.com. Homefieldapparel.com.
I got to check that website out.
Hey24.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your number one source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
Welcome back to the Booth Review. Now we're going to get into that Iowa State breakdown. I just thought that Devin deserved the full open. Just an opportunity to talk about his greatness and all he's meant to the program. But what has been vital to his greatness has been Coach Leipold and staff's ability to build strong, consistent offensive lines throughout his tenure here. This one feels a little different, Dave. That Iowa State game and the level of physicality that they reached in that football game felt different. Iowa State has struggled on the ground in the past 3 games coming into that game. They had given up 199 yards on average. So it's not as if they were humming as a rushing defense. Mm-hmm. What we did in the passing game hasn't been done to them. They've not been bombed out of the stadium the way that we did. So the combination of the offensive performance, but it started with guys up front being nasty and physically moving guys. It's kind of funny to think about. I don't know if our fans would think this was as funny, but, Penn State gets off to the great start. They are having a great season, and Coach Kotelnicki and his team are doing a great job over there on the offensive line. But one of the things they struggle with is moving people in the moments that they have to. And when they're on the goal line against Ohio State, they struggled with that. This team, when he was
a few times,
they did.
Yeah.
When he was here at Kansas, we really struggled in short yardage situations. We were not as good at moving people. We did a lot of misdirection, option. This team can line up and handle. And that, just to be clear, that was no slight to Coach Kotelnicki.
Yeah.
This is just about where this offensive line and offense is that they can turn around and hand the ball off and move people. Has a lot to do with Bryce Foster, has a lot to do with Logan Brown, has a lot to do with Michael Ford Jr., Kobe Baines, and Bryce Cable. Just talk about this offensive line and what they did in that game and what they've been doing all season.
We said it without really saying it, opening up with Devin Neal, because you and I know as well, I don't care how talented you are, you only go as far as your O-line takes you. Now, there's some dynamic things you can do as a running back in open field or making a guy miss, but ultimately, man, you ride as those guys go. You talked about, the passing and the rushing stats. You think about Iowa State as a defense. They hang their hats on being real unique with the 3-3-5, which is more designed to stop, the pass and, really, get athletes in space. But I'll tell you what, man, you talk about the O-line. I thought about you. I was going to call you, but, I'm so superstitious at times. I said, well, I'm going to let it ride out. And I thought about you because what did we talk about earlier in the year, man? We're effective when we're running the ball in the perimeter, and speed option. Our option game this past game was on point. And I mean, we wasn't, getting knocked off. When JD6 caught it, he was able to get downhill and stretch it. And those guys, even, not just the O-line, but even, skill guys blocking on the perimeter, getting guys.
They had a great game. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah,
they had a great game.
That stood out to me. You talk about big guys running, but I love the way our guys ran side to side and really attacking the perimeter, which in turn, in my opinion, made inside running a little softer because these guys were, making sure we stop the speed option, orbit motions coming. Let's get to the edge. Let's out leverage them. And we were able to pound it and get those yards when we needed. So, man, I mean, that's the big thing, like say, some people say, well, guys, O-line's big. They should be able to move people. But like our guys, that's also speaking to the athleticism of the O-line, being able to get out there and get outside shoulder, chip them, go to the next level and get that linebacker and seal it off where we can, make the pitch or, he keeps it. So, I mean, that was the big part of the run game that really stood out to me was the speed, the option game on the perimeter, man. But those guys got after it. And, even protection wise, I noticed that Iowa State tried to always send an extra guy when it wasn't spying, Jalen with that middle safety. So, I mean, those guys, man, they did a hell of a job. And, it showed. And like I said, we threw for 285, I think, in air. And, it's just, we were balanced. 500 plus yards of total offense. I mean, against a team that's ranked 17th. I mean, I don't care what it may say, on paper, 2-6, Kansas wasn't supposed to do anything against, 7-1 or 8, or whatever their record was, Iowa State. So like, I just, that, as a fan, you could play both sides of the fence, say why we didn't play like that every game. Well, it's about matchups. It's about, what goes right. But I mean, turnover battle.
And that's part of it. You talked about it. You talked about being 17th.
Yeah,
they're 17th ranked team. But they ranked top 20. They ranked top 10 in like 7 passing categories, including completions, interceptions, interception rate. They yards per completion. They were top 10 in 6 categories, and they steamrolled. And what's interesting about it is it's not that different from Houston. Houston, who hasn't lost since we played them, has that kind of defense. Basically top 25 in 6-7 different metrics. This Kansas offense can make you look bad on some nights, especially when they're moving people around in that tight run game. I have really just enjoyed watching them play with that physical nature and have that advantage. And also, we talked about the offensive explosion. We talk about matchups make fights. If you think about their last three outings between in terms of style of play, they're all vastly different, right? If you go from Arizona State to Houston to Kansas State to who we just beat, Iowa State,
I was like,
very different. Very different the way that they play defense.
Yeah.
Kansas State is a 3-3-5 team as well, who likes to switch up who are covering the 6-man gaps. So they're very similar to Iowa State in run. They're very different in structure. They blitz a lot. Arizona State blitz a lot. Houston doesn't blitz a lot. Houston likes to let their they have a really good defensive line. They like to let them control the game. Iowa State has a really good defensive line. Like to let them control the game. What we have learned is you cannot drop 8 against Jalen Daniels. You can't. It's just not going to be great for you. Every time they dropped 8, it was trouble. And and that's a team. If you look at Iowa State in sack rate, they are 110th. So they are not a team that gets pressure with 3 and 4 guys, and they're not a team that brings blitzes. They're going to sit there and play coverage, and they're good at it. They lead the league in interceptions.
But like you say, you got to have dogs at that down 3 that can get pressure and beat double teams and do things like that. And to your point about dropping 8, okay, we've got time. Our receivers are dogs, man. Let's not forget. And they're going to find gaps and spaces. And that's what, we threw it downfield. And not even the intermediate. I mean, we were throwing it 20 plus down the field and making things happen. So like you said, it's funny because you mentioned K-State, which I thought we played well enough to win that game as well. And Iowa State probably used that, scouting wise, say, okay, this is how they line up to this. This is how we're going to adjust to this. But our offense found a way, man, and to be successful against that. Yeah, I mean,
great game plan,
and stayed with it.
That's an area where you mentioned it. I mentioned in my show last week. You mentioned early that Bo Freeler is what makes their defense unique. He plays that middle safety, and what makes it unique to them is he plays at about 7 to 10 yards. So he's closer than most safeties. Yeah. Coach Grimes made it so hard to do that because Kansas was running the ball for 7+ yards a pop. And when he put it in that belly and ran play action, there were people crossing the formation nonstop. Yeah. And if you see where Iowa State has had weakness, it's at the linebacker level because of injuries. They're down to their 3rd and 4th string linebacker. So if your offense is geared around an eye test, that is tough for backup linebackers. And you saw it there. So just talk about how Grimes has continued to evolve. His game plans have continued to evolve, and this offense is really, really peaking. You're talking about a team that's number 3 in scoring over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, and I tell you, and that's a great point. And I thought, and I kept thinking, I said, you know what? It's something different. We looked more dynamic as an offense. I mean, different. We've always been, motion team, bringing receivers, but like just, different formations and really changing up things. And like say, using similar schemes, but on play action. If we're pulling a guard, but we're, pulling it just to give a somewhat RPO look, but we're giving play action, making those, as we say in Texas, the linebackers suck eggs, when they come in on the play action and throwing right over behind them. And they did even mention that in the game about that middle safety playing. Like he likes to play about 8, but he likes to come downhill hard. And that ended up being, it ended up hurting him because he was, used to being able to do those things and have success. But like you said, when you got receivers crossing your face and you got inexperienced linebackers, man, that I think nationally, Kansas has developed over the last couple of years a reputation of being like you say, a fun offense, a high energy offense, a offense that people want to emulate. And, sometimes you can't, and it's like, you don't know what these guys are going to do at times. Everybody's eligible. Everybody can carry the ball. Everybody, the ball distribution, things like that. It's not like we're going to hang our hat just on Devin Neal and ground you and pound you. We might run the off-speed option with Luke Grimm out the backfield or motion, or we might screen and throw back to Cordell, like whatever.
Yeah. Tackle Daniel Heisel.
Yeah,
exactly. Does that look fun?
which hadn't happened yet on the first try. I mean, that was a beast.
Hey, speaking of one-on-ones, he had a one-on-one with Bo Freeler that was violent. I mean, that dude, I mean, of all the people that I have ranted and raved about on this show, loving to watch play, man, Daniel Heisel, right? It was explosive.
And that's what made me excited about him. Like, thunder and lightning. It's like, I know the first guy that tries to hit this kid, they're gonna be successful. It's gotta be some kind of crazy stat on, just all his carries and like how many times he makes the first person miss, yards after contact on the first attempt. I mean, you've got so many analytics these days, but I mean, that's what I see.
Give us the stats, PFF. Give us the Daniel Heisel stats. I'm going to give you the stats. I always like to do a recap specifically on offense because there was so much struggle in the beginning, and it's all we could talk about. So I'm not going to not talk about that.
Exactly. Give them their flower.
That would be a mistake. This team is 11th in scoring in the last 3 games, 38 points per game. 5th in points per play in the last 3 games, 5th in the nation, 7th in red zone scoring for the whole season, 6th in yards per play in the last 3, 26th on the year, 6th in third down conversion rate, 17th in rushing yards per game, 10th in yards per rush, 7th in the last 3 games, 7 yards per pass attempt, yards per pass attempt, 7th. Yards per completion, 20th, 6th in the last 3, 20th on the season, 6th in the last 3, 17th in sack rate at 7%. That has even been lowered to lowest sack rate, 7th lowest sack rate in the league over the last 3 games. This offense has found its rhythm on the field through the eye test.
Top 20 in everything.
That's a top
one thing. It was top 15 until you said 20 on just one stat. I was listening.
Yeah, so this offense is what we thought it was, and it's been super fun to watch it and watch them close out the season. Big test in front of them as they get a chance to go up to Provo and down to Provo and play BYU. Let's talk BYU. BYU has a similar defensive structure to Iowa State. They are a 3-man odd front, not a lot of blitzing. They are also in the 120s in sack rate, so they're not a team that generates a lot of pressure. They do have a defensive end that's pretty good named Beatty. Good player, linebacker level, physical, not a lot of speed. I think their DBs are legitimately good. I think they're just good. Specifically, Collins, number 2, guy that makes really good plays on the ball. What you notice about them on their defensive profile, it's all about turnovers. All about turnovers. They don't stand out in any particular stat except defending the pass. They are 16th in yards per completion, and they are 1st in interception percentage, and they are 3rd in takeaways. So they do it with turnovers, interceptions, and good defensive back play.
And then number 3 in the Big 12 in just total defense, period.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a team that can play some defense.
Yeah.
However, like many other games this year for the Kansas Jayhawks, this is a good matchup. Yeah. This is a good matchup, especially in the front 7 on both sides of the football. But let's start on the offensive side when Kansas has the football. This defense has been getting gas in the run game recently. They pretty much do it with turnovers and stopping the pass. What do you see that you think Kansas can take advantage of? You saw UCF have a field day on the ground against them. How can Kansas duplicate some of that?
And like I say, a good defense, I had some numbers written down. They're number 3 in the Big 12 in total. They're number 3 in passing, and they're number 9 in, rushing. And so you look at those stats, and then you look at what we do offensively, and like I say, this is just over the year. You gave some great stats just in the last 3 games. And traditionally, when you're scouting or breaking down a team, you watch just the last 3 games, or film, or sometimes you might watch more. But like for the year, we're number 12 in passing. We're number 2, though, in rushing. So I say all that to say that, okay, if you hear that, then it's like, oh, I don't like that matchup. But what I do like, and what I think the key to us as an offense is being successful, is third down conversions. And so I say that because I think Utah was like over 50% in third down conversions. I think for the year we're over like 54% on third down. So I think, and we match up total possession. I think, 31 minutes. So that's, over half the game, a little bit right at half the game, we have the ball on offense. So I think third down conversions, holding on to the ball, keeping the ball out of their hands with their talented quarterback, and not turning the ball over, or, not even having, if we're not having as many third downs, that means we're lighting it up and we're being successful on first and second down. And I think, doing that, with our big old line, we'll wear them down. And I think you start getting tired. I start getting lazy. And then, with our motions and crossing routes and, option game, I think we could be successful in that. I think it's going to be a different type of game plan to really get after BYU, because they are a good football team and they're solid. Obviously, with them being undefeated, you can't really say, oh, this is where they're weak, because they hadn't lost anything. We can only go by numbers. But I watched the Utah game last week, and I thought Utah did a tremendous job, and they did everything they could to win the game, despite having 3 turnovers, and BYU didn't have any turnovers, and they still, in my opinion, should have won the game. But nevertheless, I look at that team who's had, Utah, who's had their own struggles, but they found a way. I mean, they were down to their 3rd string quarterback. They were, so I think just, being efficient on third down, if we have to face those third downs, low percentage third down, like third, medium down to third and shorts, but taking care of the ball and just doing what we do. I say this humbly, because I believe in our guys. I don't it's hard to cover our guys one-on-one the whole game. It's hard if you're gonna, try to, key Q Skinner. I think then the Grim Reaper is gonna have a field day underneath in the slot. I mean, can't forget about Arnold. You can't forget about just other guys like say the running backs catching out the backfield. You never know where Laughlin's gonna end up. I mean, just our tight ends. I mean, so I just think we're capable. We've got the game plan. We've got the athletes roster-wise. And that's been something, traditionally that you're like, oh, we'll see what happens. But I think, like you say, we lost 5 games, by 1 score. Okay, woulda, coulda, shoulda, that's the past. But I say that to say that we're very capable, not just offense, but capable team. And, they proved that last week, with them being an underdog against a good Iowa State team. And, on to the next one. But I think, in my opinion, and, hopefully we're talking about it on the phone, a week from now, talking about a victory. But I think time of possession, winning the turnover battle, and third down efficiency is going to be the key to Kansas offense being successful and coming out with a win.
Yeah, and it's like you mentioned, it's a good matchup. Vegas put point numbers on matches to make people bet on them, but they have some historical value.
Exactly.
BYU is a 2-point favorite at home. You get 3 points for being at home. So that tells you what they think about the matchup. Exactly. But I think the matchup is even. Exactly. So that's how I feel about it. When I watch them play defense, one of the things that stands out about their passing defense is you don't complete a lot of passes on them. You don't complete a lot of long passes on them. Mm-hmm. I do feel like there is an element of that has been a product of the way that the game has played out. I think teams have had a lot of success running the football on them. Oklahoma State comes to mind. Oklahoma State threw the ball 19 times. And if you've watched Oklahoma State at all, Alan Bowman has had a rough season. Yeah. And Oklahoma State's defense has had a rough season. So they have a hard time stopping people. When I look down at their roster team by team, they haven't played anybody like Jalen Daniels. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to be completely honest with you. They've not played anybody like JD. And especially this version of JD.
Yes.
They've not played somebody that can sit back in the pocket and hurt you when you drop 8. They've not played somebody that can do the same thing with his feet when in the option game, in the option read game, in the RPO game. They've not played somebody this confident in what he's seen. And he's coming off of 2 straight games against this odd front. Mm-hmm. They know what they're looking at.
Yeah.
They know what works and they know what they feel good about. I think the number to me to look at is what stood out about Iowa State was Kansas on first and second down. Mm-hmm. Kansas would get 9 yards on first down and they bomb you. If you get 9 yards on first down, they bomb you. The other part of that is they like to throw play action on first down. Mm-hmm. The problem with that is incomplete passes, right? You get incomplete pass, you don't get the 3 yards, you start a 2nd and 10. Mm-hmm. Not a problem for Kansas because they're rushing for 7 yards every time they get the ball. So that now they can take a shot on first and second down and feel confident that they'll find themselves in a 3rd and short. That is a dangerous recipe for an opposing defense. And I honestly think that's what happened to Iowa State. Yeah. They were getting gashed on first down and getting gashed on second down, and it was very hard for them to keep pace with this offense. And I believe that BYU has good DBs. I do not believe their DBs are going to be better than Iowa State.
Yeah, I think what they've seen over the Big 12. Yeah,
I think Iowa State has superior defensive backs to BYU. They also play a lot of man. Something that I had to get corrected on by their performance was I thought our receivers early in the year struggled to beat man. They did not struggle to beat man against Iowa State. Quentin Skinner beat man big time twice with his speed, size, and ability. And then, I mean, if you're going to play Luke Grimm in man, good luck. I mean, he did things all night.
Route technician.
So now it's not just one thing, it's everything. Yeah. So it used to be when we talked about this offense, this is that, but that, this is that. It's all there. So they can pull it, play action, throw over the middle. They can pull it, play action, throw it deep. They can pull it, play action, throw rail back to Devin Neal. It's all available.
And like you said, it's wide open. And, when, looking at it from a strategic point of view, it's like tendency breakers. You mentioned, throw it on first down, trying to break a tendency, but you say, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And like I say, if you're getting 7 yards of pop, then second down is wide open. Second down is where you might run it again, or you can, throw something deep, take a shot, and still have a favorable third down, and on the other side of it, like you said, a lot of defensive coordinators like to say, if you get behind on first down, they're going to pressure you on second and third. You know what I'm saying? And so, it's a numbers game, but you don't want to out-coach what's working. Like I say, if you know what's coming and you still can't stop it, we're in good shape. And now that seemed to be the case, like you say, this past week with our run game. But they're good, a lot of hype is around, Devin Neal. So I know that's going to be, focal point for, the BYU defense. That's going to be bulletin board material. That's going to be, there's some big, traditionally always big guys up front, at BYU, and they're physical. But like you say, in their secondary, they like to keep everything in front of them. Like I said, I don't think, they can cover our guys or stay in man the whole night. You mentioned the things that Jalen Daniels can do. And, I think about also him being able to throw on the run. He's done some good things throwing on the run as well and been accurate doing it, so I think that's another element added to what you said, like you said, what they haven't seen from quarterbacks that they faced this year. So I'm excited about, us going in there and taking care of business, having a sound game plan and playing within our strengths and just taking care of the ball. We take care of the ball, man. It shows. It shows. The Houston game, I don't think we had a turnover, and we threw up 40 plus points, a good Iowa State team, no turnover, 40 plus points. Not to say that that's a correlation, but I'm saying what the offense is capable of doing when we do take care of the ball, hold the ball, and, man.
Yeah, it's just a different animal. That protecting that football is a different animal, and you got to do it against these teams that want to play defense like this. If you're going to play defense like this and play off and play base defense, you got to force turnovers, or you're just going to get gas. Yeah. If Kansas will protect the ball, they will be doing lots of gas. Now let's switch over to that defense for Kansas. One thing that I haven't talked about enough is Coach Borland and the timing of his blitzes and game plan. Mm-hmm. You saw him get home a lot against Kansas State and Houston, and then you saw him get home a lot.
They got after Rocco. They got after Rocco, man.
Rocco. Just talk about, it just seems like when Cornell's out there, the likelihood that we can get a team into third and medium plus is astronomically elevated. Yeah. It's like it allows us to play the full defensive game plan. I know there were some disappointing moments in that Iowa State game where they felt like there were some lapses when they started playing off coverage and they weren't that great at it. And there's reason
we were up. We had a lull, and that's fine.
There's reason to be concerned about that inside of the program. There's reason to be concerned about that. I wasn't actually concerned at all. I thought that the difference in this game and every other close game that they lost was the defense said no and shut the door. When Iowa State got that first drive of the second half, they were moving the football cross midfield. J.B. Brown said no way. Stopped them on 3 straight runs on short yardage, capped it with a 4th and 1 where JB beat 2 blocks and then finished the guy on the sideline. Mm-hmm. Same thing can be said for Melo. They're starting to make that push. Melo grabs and says no. Actually,
for the second year in a row. Deja vu, baby.
Had to wave bye-bye to some Cyclone fans as he waltzed into the end zone. I thought the defense was more assertive about closing the door. And if they've got that kind of offense matched with that kind of defensive mentality, which is pressure, get to the quarterback, close the door when we have an opportunity. Yeah. Talk about that defense and how they've evolved at the back half of this season.
No doubt. And like you said, I thought early in the game, I thought it was on third down, but it was really on first, second downs when Iowa State got in empty, and they were able to catch it, and they were making big gains, and they came back and hit an RPO, and I thought, I was like, oh, God, we can't get to them, and then, they're finding holes in our defense, but like I say, we had to figure it out, and they kind of went away from it a little bit, but I was so impressed with the way our D-line looked, athletically and really getting after Rocco. He was the big talk last year's game about his feet and the things he can hurt you with. I think he was a true freshman last year, I think, and they talked about how well he played. But this year, he's experienced, so I'm pretty sure he's being told to, go through your progressions more and not use your feet as much. But that's still a weapon that he has at his disposal. And I thought our guys did a great job at it. And, our 2 corners get so much praise, which is well-deserved. And at times they get a lot of criticism because everybody wants them to be perfect every game. Me being a running back, I have an uncle who played, at LSU, played in the NFL, and he told me when I was younger, he said, cornerback is one of the hardest positions in football to play. And you think about that, and when I was younger, I'm like, oh, whatever, but you don't know what this person's going to do. So you got to play technique. You got to be able to flip hips. You got to be able to run, recover. And not pass interfere or hold at the same time, in a passing league. And, I thought I thought they picked on my boy Kobe a little bit and tried to get after Kobe and, and maybe set an example out of him. But, Melo rose to the occasion. And I think those two play off of each other. And I think as well because, Kobe gets a lot of the attention, which is well-deserved. But, then Melo, he just jumped up and it's just like you have games where this is going to be his game. You have opponents that you play year in, year out. And traditionally, I have a good game against this and golly, a late interception that kind of seals the deal. He did it 2 years in a row. So hats off to Melo Dotson, man, and our defense and our secondary. But I like I say, J.B. Brown, Cornell Wheeler, those guys, Robinson, our D-line, there were so many names that I heard that I know who they are, but I hadn't heard them a lot this season as far as big playmaking. It was distributing across if this guy's getting pressured and this guy's making a tackle. It was a total team defensive effort as far as the success they were having. If a linebacker's blitzing and they're staying gap sound, man, it's coverage sacks. It's just, I just thought they did a good job with our front end. I was looking at our front, we're 4 down, it looks 4-3 one time. It's 4-2-5 personnel, but it's 4-3 look. I thought Coach Borland did a good job of maybe disguising some things, pre-snap that, maybe hurt Rocco, on his reads. But, you could only play empty a certain way, So, you kind of know where things are. You're trying to get home. But, when they got, they had back in the backfield and they were regular 2x2, 3x1 formations with the running back. Our guys, are used to seeing that because we run a similar type offense. So I thought our guys really got after it. And so you say our O-line, but also our D-line was nasty.
Yeah, D-line is good.
And because the quarterback is athletic. Your quarterback is athletic. It's not like you're playing some kid that had 3 knee surgeries and he's a pocket passer. this kid can, Rocco Beck can go. And, so, hats off. And if this is a time where we're peaking as a team, and you talked about the production numbers, you see it on the field, man. And, we're just talking about what we see. We're not talking about, what could be. We're talking about what we see, from, Houston on, and even the K-State game. I thought we played well enough to win, and that's a good K-State team. It's about wins and losses, but you also, as a program, as a coach, you look at how my team is playing and, we're 1-2 play away. And that is the main story of Kansas, being 1, 2, 3 plays away. And consequently, that's the record is showing. But, I think, who was that? Was that the, coach, oh God. I played for Coach Kleiman, K-State, at the time said that Kansas was the best 2-5 team, in the nation. Now, people say, well, what does that mean? Well, it means that this team is easily could be 5-2, That's what he means by that. It's not like, oh, we're just groveling for a compliment. Coach Kleiman is a great coach. I remember when he was a, younger coach when he was at Kansas and, just to his credit, you can say, well, he had to say that. No, coach is a straight up dude and, he's going to give it to you how it is. So I think all that stuff Kansas just needs to put together, man. And like I say, the 4 walls and just go, man. And, hopefully they put that to bed. Iowa State's gone and getting ready. We're already at, Thursday, Friday and, game will be here. And 9 o'clock game, BYU love to play those late games. And obviously I know it's on the West Coast, but as far as the eyes that'll be on, this game, it's on ESPN 1, I say ESPN 1, ESPN, but that's the kind of the conclusion of that college football Saturday, and a lot of eyes are going to be on the Jayhawks, man.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. The Jayhawks deserve this stage. Melo's been awesome. I thought he did a great job on Jaden Higgins. Higgins' numbers look pretty good. If you watch that game, though, Higgins, they had to move him into the slot to get him open.
I 55 yards, held him 55 yards, I think. 88.
He ended up with 88. A lot of that was mop-up, and a lot of it was on someone else because Melo was giving nothing. And I think that's what I like also. I wanted to talk about Melo versus Higgins because I think it's instructive for this BYU matchup. You look at BYU's receivers; they are not dynamic athletes. They're big. They look like a basketball team. Guys somewhere between 6'2" to 6'4", lengthy, some quickness. If you look at the Kansas defensive backfield with Marvin Grant, with Kobe Bryant, with Melo Dotson, those guys are all 6'1" plus, so they match up with length. And they have the kind of twitchiness and confidence to really take this game over. I love the Jayhawks in this game. And like you said, man, it would be awesome to make a statement like this on this stage and say, you know what, you can say whatever you want about the past, but the future's bright for the Kansas Jayhawks. The future's bright for the Booth Review. Dave Winbush, my name is Brandon McAnderson. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week to talk about the Colorado Buffalo.
Rock chalk, baby.